to start off the show, during the news break, we actually heard a little bit of a commentary about, some Craigslist real estate scams, and we're going to lead the show today talking about, real estate scams, how to avoid some of them, how to protect yourself on Craigslist, as well as a myriad of other websites when you're looking at real estate data. And, we've got Arnie and David Diaz with Waterstone Mortgage, the Diaz duo, and Shawn Yesner from Yesner Law with us today. And, speaking of the Craigslist scams, I think the very first thing I always tell people, there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that put real estate listings on Craigslist. I'm one of them. We put real estate listings on Craigslist. Some that are legitimate, some that are not. And there's a couple of simple ways as a prospective tenant or a prospective buyer that you can kind of verify that. Number one is Googling the address to see if there's any other links or information. That generally can lead you to a listing agent. So if you have the address, Google it. If the agent isn't the listing agent, that can kind of give you an idea, or not just the agent, but the person advertising it, as to who should be the person advertising it, or who you should go to for questions. But secondarily, I think a lot of tenants make mistakes when they put up deposits with landlords or prospective landlords. The scam that's out there is, Joe Blow puts up an ad on Craigslist and says he's renting a house. He goes and shows up and meets a tenant there and takes a deposit. The tenant wants the property. Joe Blow runs off with the money. Wasn't the actual owner, wasn't the actual property manager, and then the tenant is just basically SOL with their money lost. So generally, you can verify the ownership of the property on property appraisers' websites. You can see who the owner is, so you know where the money's going. Or secondarily, you can verify a real estate license, a business card, and you can even ask to see a property management agreement to determine that person has the authority to market and advertise that property. But at least once a month, someone calls our office because there's some scammer out there that takes photos of a property we have listed, puts it on Craigslist and puts it up for rent, even though it's for sale, and bilks somebody out of money with that tenant not, being conscious enough to vet and verify, that person is the actual owner or authorized agent of the seller. So definitely a good way to double check if you find a rental ad somewhere. Those are a couple simple steps. You can look the property up on public records. If the person says that they're the owner and represents themselves as the owner, look it up. And then ultimately, if they claim that they're an agent, you can generally ask for some sort of agreement or proof that they're the agent representing the property. And of course, look up the real estate license. You can look up the real estate license on myfloridalicense.com. So that's a good website to check. Shawn, what other advice would you give in that same token?
Yeah, I think what you said was perfect. Go to Google, type in the county property appraiser website. That'll pull it up for free. And then you can do a search based on the property address and make sure that the person you're talking to is the owner. The other version of that scam that I see a lot is where the person that has the house up for rent or up for sale actually is the owner. You look them up on the property appraiser's website, and there they are as the owner, but the house is in foreclosure.
Yeah, that's another bad one.
The house is deep into the foreclosure process, so they're facing down a foreclosure sale or something like that. And so now the prospective tenant, or maybe someone who wants to buy it on a lease option or something like that, comes in and pays a big deposit and starts making rent payments, and then they get a knock on the door by the sheriff's office that says,
it's time to go.
Yeah, there's someone else has bought this house at a foreclosure sale, time to go.
And a good way to do that, so obviously as real estate agents, we can look up on IMAP as a tool that we have where we can see if there's foreclosure action on the property. But as an individual person, you can go to the county clerk website and see if there's foreclosure action on the property. Yeah. You can look it up by address or by the owner's name. I think it's hillsclerk.com, it's pinellasclerk.org, but you can Google. If you Google clerk of the court for that county, you can go to the website and look it up, and then you can see if there's foreclosure action on it.
And that's what I would do, is go to the appraiser's website first, make sure I've got the proper name as the owner of the property, then go to the clerk's website, do a search based on that name, and see what foreclosure activity, or if any activity. That'll show you if that owner has evicted people before, or if they've been in foreclosure before, if they have multiple houses. There's a ton of information available on the internet.
Yeah, there's also, I think, some scams out there when it comes to people representing themselves as agents or brokers or even title agents when it comes to escrow. Wiring escrow money to someone. That's another important process to double check. Make sure the company's a valid company. Look them up. Do they have a website? Are they on the Department of Insurance? But there have been situations in our past where somebody had represented themselves that they were selling a home. And they put a home on the market, and then they want an escrow deposit, and the escrow deposit goes to this company, and this company isn't really an escrow agent, but they get you to wire money to them. So always be conscious about who you're wiring money to. Look for wire instructions, double check them, cross check them with your agent. Obviously, if you're dealing with an agent, a lot of that stuff is going to be vetted out. But if you're doing it on your own, sometimes those are the mistakes that you can make, and the risk that you take is you could send escrow money off to somebody that's going and spending it in the Bahamas this weekend because you didn't really, follow the right, double check process.
Yeah. And the other spin to that I've seen is on the closing side, on the title side. A lot of people question, well, why is a title company insisting on a wire here? Can't I just give them a cashier's check or a personal check? There's a lot of fraud in connection with
Checks.
Yeah. So people will take their cell phones and they'll scan the check to deposit it. Then they'll walk back into the title company and say, you know what, I decided I want these proceeds by wire instead. And so the title company will wire the funds in. Well, now the person's been paid twice.
Yeah.
Or
especially now with the technology, because you can do that on your phone now.
They get the check, they walk out of the closing room, they scan it on their phone, they walk right back into the closing room, and they say, you know what, I changed my mind, I want to wire instead.
Yeah, so then they get double paid.
Who thinks of these things? It's amazing.
I'll say, unfortunately, unfortunately, you're always going to find somebody that's going to look for ways to cheat and ways to scam people. And obviously there's a lot of great people out there to help people avoid those situations. On the mortgage side of things, so we've covered a couple of real estate, common real estate scams, a Craigslist rental scam. We've covered, kind of an escrow deposit scam. On the mortgage side of things, obviously mortgage fraud is probably the first thing you think of. There's a lot of that's rampant out there. I mean, what are some things you guys see or advice you can give consumers about, the scam side of the mortgage world that could help them?
Well, ever since the Great Recession, obviously there was a lot of scams going on, but lenders have gotten really, really smart, and they have so many different backup systems now to be able to double check things, and there is quality control before you close, and there's things like, well, for example, you go and you apply and you're approved and you're ready to close, but 3 days before closing they do kind of another search and they found out that you just closed on the loan.
It's interesting. So here's what's funny. I remember, back in the heyday, I remember it, and obviously this is a mortgage person that we don't work with, and obviously somebody that did something back then that was not kosher. But we had a customer who came and said, hey, I'm going to buy investment properties, and my mortgage broker said that if I go out and make 3 separate applications to 3 separate lenders, I can close on 3 properties at the same time and don't have to tell any of them about any of them. I'm like, no, I don't think that's really how it works, But so obviously a lot of these scams and a lot of the ways consumers would take advantage of the system with scams is part of the reason why some of the mortgage stuff has changed. And from a consumer's perspective, I think from a scam standpoint, there's obviously always people out there that there's tactics to get to promise a rate or a fee or a cost, and there's always consumers that get taken advantage of. I don't know if it's a scam, but nonetheless, there's certainly tips that consumers could look at to avoid getting taken advantage of in a mortgage situation, which would be things like a rate that's unbelievable, or there's obviously some of that out there.
A lot of it has to do with things that are unbelievable. Even some of these scams that involve real estate application fees, or what that somebody on Craigslist will put just a ridiculously low rent or ridiculously low price and say, yeah, come in and apply for it. There's a $50 credit check run or something like that, and then they just collect all the credit report.
And then they run, and then they skip town, But obviously the mortgage industry, the real estate industry, with the CFPB and TRID, all these steps have been taken because of some holes in the system, and a lot of people will blame what happened with the real estate market a few years ago on things like that. But in reality, there was so many other things contributing to that. But certainly over the last few years, the banks, the title companies, the lenders have they've taken steps to prevent that.
I actually had a situation that's probably again before the Great Recession. And had a realtor call me complaining about one of my loan officers. Actually, she's a branch manager of mine, and complaining because that he saw the tax returns and said the tax returns were okay, but the full story was that they had taken another set of tax returns to this other lender, to this other mortgage broker, and the mortgage broker says, we can't use this tax return. I would suggest you amend your tax returns and then go over here to Wells Fargo or to another lender I was working with at the time. And I said, well, ma'am, have they filed those tax returns yet that she showed my loan officer? No. but if you get us approved, we'll file them after you get us approved.
Yeah, that's a little much. You know,
Well,
so
I mean, that's one of the big changes. There's now forms we have to verify with the IRS
Sure.
that the tax returns that have been filed are the ones that we're looking at. So you can you can give us any piece of paper that has a different.
So again, if you want to, if you get frustrated or upset with a mortgage lender because all these steps, you can thank all the people that were scamming and milking the system.
Right,
That's
right,
ultimately
right.
why all this extra paperwork is there. One other thing I'll tell you, kind of on the same topic, not really a scam, but kind of a different angle on it. You know, something that we're seeing more and more common is attacks on realtors. Physical attacks. Verbal attacks. There have been a couple of situations in the past 6 months to a year where local real estate agents have had people arrested for altercations. And then obviously Beverly Carter not long ago was a realtor that up north that was murdered by a criminal. And so realtors right now are quite on edge. So if you are talking to a realtor and not used to them wanting to meet you somewhere neutral, verify your identification, meet you at an office, get your pre-approval information, look at your driver's license, those are all things that are going to start happening because unfortunately in today's society, until you prove yourself, you just can't be trusted, and that's just the way it is today. If you're a buyer looking at a property, the seller doesn't just want any Tom, Dick, and Harry showing up at their house. They want to make sure that you can qualify, and as an agent, that's one of our jobs is to do that so that we're not taking just anyone out and risking the homeowner's belongings and things like that. So if you're a consumer and you're maybe not used to that, or the agent's a little bit more persistent, understand that they're protecting their safety. People have been assaulted, there have been murders, realtors are being more cautious. So, just be on the up and up, provide the information, and don't be surprised if they persist for some of that information or make it a requirement to meet with you because, again, they're just wanting to protect themselves, and no home sale is worth someone's life or risking someone's life. So we're going to continue this conversation. We've been talking about real estate scams. We'll put the video up on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/The Duncan Duo after the show. We'll be back after a quick break here on 970 WFLA.